This episode is brought to you by Nespresso and Samra Origins by the Weekend Coffee Collection.
Introducing Samra Origins. My collaboration with Nespresso is a connection to my roots, to my mother, Samra. Coffee that hits the right notes. It transports you. Crafted with unique notes and bold soaring flavors. Experience a taste that moves you. Nespresso and Samra Origins.
Discover more at Nespresso.com.
The Judge Jeanine Pirro, Tunnel to Towers Foundation Sunday Morning Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back, everybody. Let's bring in our first VIP guest, certainly VIP. He's the CEO of Stagwell Incorporated and a past advisor to President Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton, the author of Microtrends as well, the great pollster Mark Penn. Mark, how are you this morning?
Good. Good morning.
Good morning. So as far as this attack on Iran carried out by Israel against their nuclear facilities, from a polling perspective, I know we don't have any numbers on this yet because it just happened, but how do you think this is going to play with the American people?
Well, actually, I do have numbers on this.
Oh,
because I had been polling the last 2 days, and I incorporated the question that what if negotiations with Iran fail, and Israel, should the U.S. support Israel in an attack on the nuclear facilities? And we'll be getting that question out as soon as we can. But it was 60-40. The U.S. should support Israel in such an attack. So that, I think, is the opening round of data. Of course, you know how negative Iran is perceived. And in fact, when you ask the question, should Iran be allowed to have a nuclear weapon, 85% of the public says no.
Wow. I'd love to meet that 15% sometimes. Says, sure, that's not a problem. But 85, I mean, that is obviously a number that you don't get to in many polls very often in a polarized country. But it seems that, as you said, 6 in 10 supporting Israel's actions here, nearly 9 in 10 saying that Iran should not have a nuclear weapon. I don't see, Mark, however, a lot of Democrats going to social media to say this was a good move by Israel, that we fully support Israel. The only senator I could find, quite frankly, who has been full-throated as far as his support for Israel, and this has been consistent for some time now, is John Fetterman, Democrat, Pennsylvania. He says, quote, "Our commitment to Israel must be absolute, and I fully support this attack. Keep wiping out Iranian leadership and the nuclear personnel. We must provide whatever is necessary, military, intelligence, weaponry, to fully back Israel in striking Iran." Unquote. So Fetterman seems to be the outlier in the Democratic Party, just in terms of, we'll have a conversation instead of talking about the numbers. How long do you think he'll be a Democrat moving forward? Because it seems like his own party is doing everything they can as far as smear campaigns through the press, as far as publicly condemning him for his words, particularly as it pertains to Israel. I could see him almost going a Joe Manchin route at this point, where I'm not saying he becomes a Republican, but maybe decides to be an independent and leaves the Democratic Party.
Well, I'm not going to speculate on what he's going to do in his political future. I think he's a Democrat who's committed to his views and his perspective, and he's expressing them without reservation. And, that's an essential part of leadership. It's not preordained that those who have the loudest voices on social media have the loudest voices at the ballot box. I think, quite often the opposite. And then I look at a disappointing comment like from someone like Senator Jack Reed in Rhode Island, where he called it, reckless escalation. And I suppose he prefers reckless appeasement. You cannot have a statement backed by 85% of the people and by the president that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon and then just let them have a nuclear weapon.
It's really remarkable. And we're talking to Mark Penn, former advisor to President Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton as well, and obviously is a great pollster who really knows what America's thinking. Was an old show on the Hill that we used to have Mark on from time to time about polling about everything. And what would be included on such a show would be the fact that we see Quinnipiac this week having another poll showing the Democrats are at 21% approval, 70% disapproval. I know your numbers are a little bit higher for Democrats, but there's certainly nothing that is comforting. You can't seem to find one that breaks 40% these days. What is the problem with the Democratic Party right now, where they are polling so horribly, perhaps you could say, and maybe this is true, as horribly as they ever have as a party?
Well, look, the Democratic Party has been in the wilderness before. The Republican Party was in the wilderness all the way from Herbert Hoover to President Eisenhower. So it's not unusual for both political parties to go off the deep end, lose their way, and when they get trounced enough, they generally find their way back, as Bill Clinton found a way back for Democrats in '92 and particularly in '96. That I worked on, and right now, Democrats as a party are polling, from what I could see, in record lows. It doesn't surprise me because, in retrospect, I think people look back on the Biden administration and almost scratch their heads about all the stuff that Biden or somebody was doing, and I it'd be natural that there's no leader until there is kind of a primary fight and a leader emerges, and that leader is in 72 and 84 could wind up with one state or could wind up bringing the party back. A lot here has to be determined.
And we're talking to Mark Penn. He's the chairman of the Harris Poll. You can learn more about the Harvard Harris Poll, which is a poll that really seems to be as accurate as any as far as taking the pulse of the American people. HarvardHarrisPoll.com is your website. Shifting gears here, Mark, I want to talk about the LA riots and how that's playing out in terms of who's winning and losing the narrative battle. So obviously, President Trump sends in the National Guard. The Defense Secretary, Pete Hegseth, has also sent in the Marines as well, even though they're not actually doing anything in terms of an active role, but still more of the presence and the symbolism than anything else. At this point, we're about now 10 days into this story. The riots still continue. They seem to be not as pronounced as they were, but now this could be spreading to other cities as Democrats are trying to organize protests throughout the country. So what do you see overall in terms of who's winning and losing this narrative? Is it Democrats saying that Donald Trump's overplaying his hand here, or is it President Trump saying, look, we're trying to deport people who are murderers, child molesters, rapists who are here illegally, and we have to do what we have to do to get them out after Joe Biden let them in? Who's winning this war right now in the rhetoric battle?
Well, overall, I think President Trump is winning because people back the overall policy that those who are here illegally and committed crimes should be exited or deported from the country. But I think the Democrats are also winning, should there be a hearing. They want to make sure that only the right people are deported, not just people in mass. And so I think, when you look at the numbers, they're both winning some point, which is that the overall policy is favored. But on the other hand, they want the policy favored, carried out, accurately and responsibly. And I think that's going to come through in the data that I unveil later this afternoon.
That's coming out, of course. That's a Harvard Caps Harris poll by Mark Penn. And in looking at your last poll, just to get a general sense of where we are, 63% of voters support the administration's actions to close the southern border. 75% of voters support deporting illegal criminals, even though, as you point out, 53% of voters believe the administration is unfairly deporting people who are not really criminals. But overall, those two big numbers, 63% close the southern border, 75%, 3 and 4, deport illegal criminals. Why do you think Democrats seem to be going to the other side as far as trying to defend the Kilmar Abrego Garcias of the world, alleged MS-13 gangbanger, obviously somebody who in court documents his wife says beat him and now is being charged with human trafficking? What is the political calculus here as far as Democrats taking the side of those here illegally than those who are not here, or as far as Republicans trying to remove them?
Well, I hate to tell you, but beats me. Look, if Democrats were saying, we agree that those here who are illegally committed crimes should be deported, and we will cooperate with that, but we want to make sure that only people, there's a proper due process here, that would be a position that would be responsible. But the sanctuary city position is that no one will be deported regardless of what they've done, that no cooperation will occur with an ICE representative, even if the person is there on trial. And so the Democrats are not coming forth with a policy that could bring in the 70 or 80% and yet also achieve the goal of due process. They're instead only focusing on the due process, and that's why they're not winning this issue.
And we're talking to Mark Penn. He is, of course, the founder of the Harvard Caps Harris Poll. Are you the founder, Mark? I want to make sure I got that correct.
I think that's accurate. Yep.
Okay, well, we'll go with that. Fine, we want to be accurate here. So overall, as far as President Trump and his approval, that has held steady. Most polls you see, there are one or two outliers that make you scratch your head, but overall, I see in your poll, for example, high 40s. I see in Rasmussen, who does daily tracking, he went as high as 56% approval this week at one point. But overall, when you compare it to the first term where Donald Trump was primarily in the mid-30s, high 30s, he's about 10 points on average higher. What's different this time around than what we saw during term number one?
Well, I think, first of all, I think the president has a determined agenda. There's no Russia investigation, muddying the waters here. I think the president is holding those people who voted for him. I'm not sure he's converting people. He's not breaking through to the 50% barrier because people are taking a wait and see attitude on the economy. Is it getting better? Is it getting worse? I think people feel a little better, but still, don't have clarity on that point. And that's kind of the major thing that will unlock a next level of support. I think there's a lot of support for some of the immigration and other policies. So I think it's a little early, but he certainly is holding everyone who voted for him.
The website is markpenn.com, markpenn.com, to read all things about Mark's polls and perspective. And obviously, you can follow him on Twitter at Mark_Penn. Final question to you, Mark. Got about 60 seconds. Who's the most popular public figure in politics right now outside of Donald Trump? I see a lot of great polling around Bobby Kennedy Jr., for example. Marco Rubio seems to be polling pretty well. I can't find too many Democrats that are polling even remotely where they are. But what do you see in the numbers as far as outside of Trump, who else is popular among the American people relatively?
Well, as you just pointed out, it's a very divided country, so it's very hard for people to get positive or net positive ratings. They tend to get either the Democrats or the Republicans, and then independents are kind of a split in the middle. So I think but I do think Bobby Kennedy is very interesting because he does cross over into some Democrats, particularly moms with kids who feel the same way he does about food and drugs, that there has to be kind of greater inspection of the safety of both food and drug products. And I think consequently, surprisingly, even though there were a lot of people who were talking about opposing his nomination, he's among, the most popular figures.
Amazing. And Mark, unfortunately, we have to leave it there, but you are the CEO of Stagwell Incorporated, and markpenn.com is the website. HarvardHarrisPoll.com as well. The results there you can read from Mark's latest polls, and they are fascinating, and there's a lot of different questions, so it's not just the top line, but you want to peel off that onion a little bit. Mark, thanks so much for joining us. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, and this is Joe Concha on the Judge Jeanine Tunnel to Towers Foundation Show. Back with more in just a moment.
The Judge Jeanine Pirro Tunnel to Towers Foundation Sunday Morning Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Ready to make a real impact every day? Join the Active Day Home Care team and help clients maintain their independence in the comfort of their own homes. Make a difference in someone's life as you provide essential daily assistance and protect their health and happiness. Earn up to $20 an hour and enjoy additional perks like optional daily pay, 401k, paid time off, ongoing educational training, and more. Join a team that values care, compassion, and your professional growth. Visit ActiveDay.com to apply.